picture going around online this month. It claims to show a screenshot of a 2002 episode of The Simpsons.
Something strange is happening with The Simpsons. They predicted 30 major events correctly. Scientists say the odds are basically impossible. But the weirdest part is what happens next. Episode 317 showed something arriving in late August that changes everything. The government knows. Wall Street knows. Even the writers are staying quiet. Whatever The Simpsons saw coming, it's almost here. And nobody's laughing anymore. Global political chaos. On March 19, 2000, The Simpsons aired an episode called Bart to the Future. It was season 11, episode 17. In this strange flash-forward, Lisa Simpson becomes the President of the United States. During a meeting, she looks serious and says, "We've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump." Dan Graney, who wrote the episode, thought it was a joke. Trump was a real estate businessman back then, someone most people never thought would be president. Graney later explained that it was meant as a warning. It was supposed to feel like a crazy future where America hits rock bottom. 16 years later, that joke became reality. Donald Trump was elected president in 2016. Many people were shocked, including those who wrote The Simpsons. His presidency was filled with political chaos, protests, and deep social division. The strange budget crunch Lisa talked about started to feel real. Even the show acknowledged it again when Trump decided to run for president again in 2024. The show's famous chalkboard gag read, "Being right sucks." And now, in 2025, the world looks a lot like that wild future The Simpsons imagined. There have been more than 160 big anti-government protests just in the past year. In 2024 alone, there were more than 80,000 protests and riots across 20 countries. Politicians all over the world seem to be in trouble, with over 70 countries holding elections in 2024. That's more than half of the global population and 55% of the world's GDP. It's no wonder the Coface Political Risk Index is now at 40.2%. That means that most countries are at a much higher risk of instability than before the pandemic. Big companies are also seeing their leaders quit at record rates. In the first 4 months of 2025, 860 chief executives stepped down, a 15% jump. Politics are crumbling too. The Dutch government collapsed in June after their coalition fell apart. In Austria, the far-right Freedom Party is stepping in as moderates struggle to hold power. Even in the US, millions are protesting what they call an authoritarian government under Trump. Protesters talk about coups, the Supreme Court, and economic collapse as real fears. The parallels to The Simpsons don't stop there. Lisa said she couldn't solve the crisis, and Europe looks similar today. Over a quarter of the European Parliament is filled with radical right and populist parties. Far-right leaders are sharing power in at least 10 European countries. The Dutch coalition failed after winning just 51 of 150 seats. It's chaos. Students in Indonesia are on the streets too, calling for their president to step down over corruption, just like a Springfield uprising. Even Allianz, one of the biggest insurance companies, warns that political violence is now one of the top 10 risks for global business. It's real. Since 2017, there have been more than 800 serious anti-government protests around the world, and that number keeps going up. World War III, the first time The Simpsons ever hinted at World War III, was back on November 27, 1987. It was a short clip on The Tracy Ullman Show, before The Simpsons even had their own series. In that short, Homer rushes into his kid's room in the middle of the night and shouts, "Wake up, everybody! It's World War III! Quick, down to the fallout shelter! The bombs are dropping!" The family dashes into the basement in just 18 seconds. Then Homer tells them they'd all be dead meat if it were real. It was meant to be funny. But in 1987, people were scared. The Cold War was still going, and nobody had seen the Berlin Wall come down yet. That simple gag looks very different now. By 2025, things around the world feel tense again. The war in Ukraine is ongoing. The Middle East is unstable with fighting between Israel and Iran. The US and China trade threats over Taiwan. On social media, people are sharing that old clip. They keep asking if The Simpsons somehow predicted World War III. And there are a few other strange moments too. In Season 6, Episode 19, called Lisa's Wedding, Lisa's British fiancé, Hugh Parkfield, jokes in Moe's bar that the UK saved America in World War III. Moe simply replies, "That's true." It's a short exchange, but it feels chilling now because it implies a future that hasn't happened yet. There's an even darker joke in Season 28, Episode 11, called Pork and Burns, which aired in 2017. Homer looks at a desk calendar and says, "The calendar's the same in the year 2031, and we're really going to need some laughs then, after World War China." Homer just says it like it's nothing, but hearing him talk about a war with China and putting it in the early 2030s feels eerie as we move closer to those years. What started as a silly joke in a cartoon decades ago doesn't feel so funny anymore. AI Takeover on March 18, 2012, The Simpsons aired an episode that feels strange to look back on today. It was Season 23, Episode 17, called Them Robot. In the story, Mr. Burns fires every worker at the nuclear power plant and replaces them with a fleet of A9000 robots. Homer is the only human left. His only job is to sign for packages and take the blame if anything goes wrong. Springfield's unemployment rate hits a crazy 99%, and soon the robots stop working properly. They cause accidents all over town. Everyone comes together to fight back and get their jobs back. The episode ends as a warning. Too much automation can destroy lives. And here we are in 2025. The world looks a lot like that funny cartoon. AI use is exploding. Experts say there will be 378 million AI users by the end of the year, and the AI industry is set to grow to $244 billion. Big companies are making AI tools for everything, like Google's Project Astra, T-Mobile's AI phone, and Xiaomi's Hyper AI. These tools can do jobs that used to take real people, just like Mr. Burns's robots. But problems keep popping up. In 2024, AI mistakes caused serious trouble. Self-driving cars crashed, deepfake scams stole millions, and AI chatbots gave bad advice. Around the world, people are scared that AI is moving too fast. In May 2024, crowds in 13 countries protested. They held signs that read, "Stop the race, it's not safe." Even top scientists warned that AI could lead to disasters as serious as nuclear accidents. And it's not just about safety. Many workers fear losing their jobs. A 2023 Goldman Sachs report said AI might take over the work of 300 million full-time jobs. Artists and freelancers say they're already losing gigs to machines. In The Simpsons episode, 99% of Springfield was left jobless by machines. That doesn't feel so far-fetched anymore. There are other eerie similarities too. On The Simpsons, the robots eventually attack humans. In real life, AI has been glitching and causing harm, like a deep-fake scam that stole $25 million or a Tesla crash that killed a driver. A U.S. government report in 2024 even warned that AI could cause global disasters or spark wars if not handled carefully. And just like in Springfield, people are starting to fight back. The Pause AI protests have been spreading. Protesters say tech companies cannot be trusted to police themselves. Gideon Futerman, a student at Oxford, spoke at a London rally and warned, "They have proven time and time again that they cannot be trusted. Even the Simpsons creators have joined in. Executive producer Matt Selman joked, "The Simpsons will be the last show to embrace AI, not the first." Creator Matt Groening went further, saying, "AI stands for artificial idiocy." Economic collapse. In the Simpsons movie in 2007, Springfield was ruined by pollution, followed by a huge government crackdown and economic collapse. Other episodes showed Springfield going through hyperinflation, bank runs, and total chaos. It all felt like ridiculous comedy at the time. But by 2025, these wild plots started looking a lot like the real world. That's the creepy part. In 2025, Donald Trump is back in office again. Stock markets are swinging up and down. The S&P 500 is lower than it was at the start of the year. Inflation, which The Simpsons made jokes about for decades, is suddenly real. In January 2025, the U.S. Consumer Price Index hit 3%, and the price of everyday items like eggs went up 15%, the biggest jump in years. Interest rates are still high, making it hard for people and companies to borrow money. The Federal Reserve is barely cutting rates because they're scared of making things worse. And some economists say the worst is yet to come. Harry Dent warns that the S&P 500 could drop by 32%. The Atlanta Fed's GDP tracker says growth could actually go negative. Consumer confidence is dropping, and Kalshi, a prediction market, says there's a 40% chance of a recession this year. And remember those Springfield bank runs. In the 1995 episode The PTA Disbands, Bart freaks out because the bank is out of money. That was meant to be funny, but in 2023, the real Silicon Valley Bank failed, and customers rushed to withdraw their money. It was so much like the cartoon that people shared the clip all over social media. Another Simpsons episode called No Loan Again, Naturally showed a housing collapse and foreclosure crisis. It was a parody back then, but now people worry the housing market might crash again if the economy keeps sliding. That's why all of this feels so strange. The Simpsons showed things like inflation at 3%, tariffs causing trade wars, volatile stock prices, fragile banks, job losses, and big deficits long ago. Every one of those jokes looks like a serious headline in 2025. Even the show's jokes about Liberation Day tariffs sound like the trade wars we're seeing right now. Alien contacts, because stories about aliens, UAPs, and government cover-ups are everywhere now. From May 2023 to June 2024 alone, the U.S. government reported 757 new UAP incidents. That came out at SXSW in March 2025. In it, 34 military and intelligence officials spoke on the record. They said that alien craft have been visiting Earth since the 1940s. They said these craft can travel at 50,000 miles per hour, which is 10 times faster than anything we have. Some even talked about recovering non-human biologics from crash sites. Luis Elizondo, who used to run the Pentagon's secret UFO program, said it was the most successful cover-up in U.S. history. And then came the videos. Ufologist Jeremy Corbell leaked footage of a disc-shaped craft flying over Afghanistan and Pakistan. It had no heat signature and moved in ways nobody could explain. Estimates put it between 200 and 400 meters across. Corbell said he spent 2 years verifying the clip. U.S. officials agreed that it was real. Suddenly, these ideas weren't just for movies or cartoons. In November 2024, Rear Admiral Timothy Gallaudet and NASA's Michael Gold spoke to Congress. Whistleblower David Grush, a former intelligence officer, even told lawmakers that the U.S. had recovered alien craft and bodies. High-profile politicians like Marco Rubio and Kirsten Gillibrand started pushing for answers. And this is what makes it all feel so surreal. What was once the stuff of jokes is now front-page news. It's not crazy to talk about aliens anymore. At Rice University's 2025 UFO conference, one speaker put it simply, "It used to be you were crazy if you believed in UFOs. Now you're sort of crazy if you don't." Strange health crisis. When Margin Chains first aired on May 6, 1993, nobody thought much of its strange story. It was Season 4, Episode 21, written by Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, and directed by Jim Reardon. In the episode, a factory worker in Japan sneezes into a box of juicers. That shipment travels to Springfield, and when people open the boxes, they catch the Osaka flu. Almost overnight, the town is gripped by sickness. Hospitals fill up. Everyone is scared. At the time, it was just a silly plot. But years later, it felt like they had seen the future. When COVID-19 began spreading in 2019 and 2020, people couldn't help noticing the eerie similarities. In both the show and real life, a virus started overseas, spread quickly through shipments, and sent communities into a panic. Springfield rushed to hospitals, demanded a cure, and watched life change overnight. And it wasn't just that. The episode also had a strange twist. A crowd accidentally releases a box of bees outside the hospital, which adds even more chaos. Nearly 3 decades later, people in the US were reading alarming headlines about murder hornets, also known as Asian giant hornets, appearing in Washington state. Suddenly, a story that once felt ridiculous had 2 big things, a virus and a strange insect panic, that matched real-world headlines. Of course, the writers never claimed to predict the future. Bill Oakley has said that they based the episode on past events like the 1968 flu pandemic, and that history repeats itself. The parallels were just a coincidence. Even Mike Rice, one of the showrunners, laughed it off and said, "The whole 'The Simpsons predicted it' thing is silly, but The Simpsons predicted it." Still, there's something strange about how close this fictional story matches reality. From the virus jumping across borders to the fear and chaos that followed, the episode feels less like comedy and more like a strange kind of time capsule. Even as new health crises continue to appear and scientists warn about future threats, this old episode from 1993 reminds us that sometimes real life can look a lot like satire. Simulation theory. Have you ever wondered if The Simpsons hinted that we might be living in a simulation? One of its most famous episodes actually seems to do exactly that. It happened on October 29, 1995, when Treehouse of Horror 6 first aired. In a part called Homer 3, Homer accidentally steps into a strange world hidden behind a bookcase. It looks like a reality glitch, filled with 3D shapes, floating math formulas, and a wormhole that throws him into Los Angeles as a live-action human. At the time, most viewers thought it was just a clever joke, inspired by the old Twilight Zone episode Little Girl Lost. But looking back now, it feels like the show was telling us that the world might not be as solid as we believe. This idea of a glitch in reality is even more shocking in 2025. Simulation theory, which suggests our world is really a computer program, is now taken seriously. Elon Musk says the odds we live in base reality are 1 in billions. Neil deGrasse Tyson thinks it's better than a 50-50 chance we're in a simulation. On top of that, the Mandela effect, where millions misremember famous facts, is often called a glitch in the Matrix. People around the world talk about strange déjà vu and odd changes to everyday life, and all of it feeds into the fear that reality itself is breaking down. That's what makes Homer 3 feel so strange today. The Simpsons predicted so much already, from Disney buying Fox to President Trump, that some researchers say it defies probability. A statistical analysis of over 750 episodes found that at least 30 big predictions have come true. The odds of that happening by chance? 1.86e37. Some scientists even argue that this predictive skill could make the show useful as a forecasting model. It's as if The Simpsons is tapping into the underlying code of our world. And that one little Halloween episode, aired back in 1995, looks more important than ever. Its mix of clever comedy and eerie visuals, Homer drifting through a world of math and glitchy shapes before escaping into our world, matches exactly what thinkers and tech billionaires now debate. Even academic papers have analyzed Homer 3 as a symbol of the fragile, constructed feeling of reality. Every strange glitch and moment of existential dread in that segment feels like a hint that something is off. That's why The Simpsons keeps showing up in these conversations. It saw the rise of virtual worlds long before The Matrix. It showed Homer stepping into a realer world long before most of us ever wondered if we were really here at all. And with more and more people sharing their own strange experiences about déjà vu, altered memories, or glitches that nobody can explain, that silly cartoon episode doesn't feel so silly anymore. It feels like it was telling us the truth, years before we were ready to hear it. Self-driving car malfunction. On November 4th, 2018, The Simpsons aired an episode called Baby, You Can't Drive My Car. It was Season 30, Episode 5. In this story, Homer and Marge work for a startup named Cargo that it ignored him when he told it to stop. He even called customer support, but they could not make the car stop or open its doors. Johns thought he might miss his flight because the car kept going around in loops. Eventually, he managed to escape, but not before posting about it online and warning others. And this wasn't the only time something like this happened. In early 2025, Becky Navarro and her friends were riding in a Waymo car in Austin, Texas. Suddenly, the car stopped on a busy highway and refused to move. Worse, it wouldn't let them get out. Traffic flew past as they stayed trapped inside. Becky shared a video on TikTok, and people were shocked. Many began to wonder if these cars were really ready for public roads. And there are numbers to back up these fears. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said that by June 2022, there were already 392 crashes involving cars with advanced driver assistance systems. Waymo had 62 crashes with its fully self-driving cars during that time. By December 2023, California's DMV had tracked 624 crashes with autonomous cars. Waymo itself told the NHTSA about 150 crashes from July 2021 to August 2023. In 2024, Waymo had to recall 1,212 cars after 16 crashes with obstacles. Then they recalled 444 more after 2 small crashes in Arizona. What's really scary is that this is not just a software problem, it's a safety issue. John said that after the second time the car went in a circle, he thought it was a prank at first. Then he realized it wouldn't stop. Navarro and her friends on the highway had nowhere to go as cars zipped by. The car's software decided that trapping passengers was better than letting them out in a dangerous spot. And that is what upsets people most. That old Simpsons episode doesn't feel like a joke anymore. What once was comedy looks like a serious warning. Back then, the Simpsons writers had fun showing a self-driving car going haywire. Now that future is here, real people are riding in these cars. Real malfunctions are happening. Real dangers are on the roads. And as self-driving cars grow more common, so do the risks. Waymo alone gives more than 250,000 rides every week across big cities in the United States. Matt Selman, one of the people who make The Simpsons, put it simply. He said, if you look closely at past human mistakes, you can guess what foolish things will happen next. That's exactly what happened with self-driving cars. The show thought it was being silly, but it saw the future, and that future is already here. Mars colonization. In March 2016, The Simpsons aired an episode called The Marge Ian Chronicles. It was Season 27, Episode 16. In the story, Lisa signs up for a private trip to colonize Mars. The plan is to leave Earth by 2026. Later in the episode, the date is pushed back to 2051. It was a funny, satirical look at space travel. But now, less than a decade later, it feels like real life. Back then, Mars colonization was mostly talk. It was something you'd hear at conferences or read in science fiction. But The Simpsons went further. The show invented a company called Exploration Inc. that wanted to send people to Mars forever. They even picked the crew like a reality show. This felt like a joke, but it wasn't far from real projects at the time. Mars One was making bold claims about sending people to Mars by 2027, promising a big televised event. Now it's 2025, and some of those predictions feel real. SpaceX says it will send its first uncrewed Starship rockets to Mars as early as 2026. They plan to send humans in 2028 or 2029 if all goes well. Elon Musk says he wants a self-sustaining Martian city with 1 million people by 2050. That's very close to the 2051 date from the Simpsons episode, and the specifics match even more. SpaceX hopes to launch up to 8 starships to Mars in 2026. Later, each starship could carry 100 people or up to 150 metric tons of cargo. Musk talks about making 1,000 starships and flying them every 26 months, which is when Earth and Mars are closest. That's the perfect launch window. Musk often repeats his plan to put 1 million people on Mars by 2050. He even said, "That's the goal," when someone asked him online. On the business side, The Simpsons showed the Mars trip as very commercial, with logos on spacesuits and reality TV-style trials. That matches SpaceX's style of bold launches, partnerships with NASA, and massive media hype. And like the comedy in the episode, the reality is hard. SpaceX has had big test explosions in 2024 and 2025. Rockets failed to land properly. Musk hasn't given up, though. It matches the spirit of the show, where everyone had to struggle before reaching Mars. The Simpsons was also sharp on culture. Its version of Mars travel looked like a business first, an adventure second. Real interviews with future Mars volunteers sound a lot like Lisa and Marge in the show. Musk himself has talked about leaving Earth forever, in a way that matches the bittersweet tone of the episode. By 2025, SpaceX is moving closer to its goals. The dates, the methods, even the dream of 1 million people on Mars. All of this feels less like a joke and more like a plan. The Simpsons may have been making fun of a wild future, but their version of Mars travel is starting to look real. Maybe the show's writers just had good imaginations. Or maybe we're living in the world they already dreamed up years ago.